he is at the Drone Code show, which is on in Philadelphia, which I'm actually traveling to tomorrow morning to give a talk. And so I'm just basically going to record it, and then I will put it up on YouTube at a later date, probably tomorrow at some stage. And if Brian, if I like I said, if I do mess up, because people are going to be joining and whatever else, and sometimes I have a habit of not sharing the screen properly, just pipe up and bonk me on the head and I'll fix it. Okay, so thank you, Brian. Okay, so OpenAI Explorers meetup. So we're going to talk about GitHub Copilot today. Go through some news first. So we've 90 new members in the last month. We just hit 500 members, which is pretty cool. There have a bunch of things have been released this month by OpenAI. There are some really interesting things that have happened. One of them that's not even on this board that happened today. So GPT 4.5 came out. So that is like the latest model. It's there was a lot of talk about whether it was going to be all singing and all dancing. We're definitely not there yet. It's not. It's a bit better than 4.0, but it's not what everybody was expecting, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There have been 2 new text-to-speech and speech-to-text have come out, 2 new models for that. So they're pretty interesting because in about a year ago, or maybe a little bit longer, when I did one of the first meetups, we did this thing where we were talking about a language role-playing model where you were talking to the OpenAI to try and see if you could learn French. And what was happening was really annoying because it wasn't detecting when you paused, and it was just basically blabbing at you instead of being involved in the conversation. So one of the models now has a voice activity detector, which means that it's going to be much better at being able to do that. There is a new agent SDK. So month before last, we did a whole thing on agents, and one of them was Swarm, which is OpenAI's version of the agentic frameworks, so like Crew AI and other stuff. But that's now being superseded by this new agent SDK. So we're gonna look at that in April, because I think that's really interesting. Because if it does what I think it does, because Swarm was pretty basic, the beta that they had. I'm always interested in what OpenAI is doing. They're usually the leaders, so try to see if they're better than Crew AI or some of the other frameworks. And also the other thing that was huge is DALL-E got a major upgrade today. So there's 4.04 Omni image generation. If, like me, if you see an image on LinkedIn or whatever, Instagram, you can always tell now if that it's generated by DALL-E. It has this kind of a look and a feel. So the new version is much more photorealistic. So they've caught up with the competition. So that's pretty cool. So that's something worth trying out. I did want to show this as well, in case people want to know. If you want to know where to find everything, if you go to OpenAI and just look for the new products, there is a new product page. So it'll tell you all the things that have happened. So here's more info on 4.5. As I said today, the new image generation for DALL-E, and then the audio models and the new tools for building agents is in there too as well. So that's a good place to look if you're trying to figure out what's going on. I tend to go to the forum just to see where the announcements are, and you can get to that from the playground. Okay, so look forward to the new agent SDK next month. So this month we're going to do GitHub Copilot. Try to get an idea about what is their pricing model at the moment. What I did find is there are a couple of free versions. If you want to try them, my recommendation would be to pay for it, because you get all the new stuff if you pay for it. If you're a student or a professor, then the educational version is free. So I've had that a few times, which is great. But there is a free version that you can get. Doesn't have all the options. I think it just works with ChatGPT, doesn't work with the other models. But it's great to start out with, and saves another $20 a month. The business level that I'm using with our guys, I work at a mobile company called Reese, and it's $19 a seat, and we have whatever 14, 15 people on it. It's pretty widely used. There was always the start where people are using it all the time, but I'm still, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, because GitHub is changing its model. It's a billing, so you can see who's using what. So I'm trying to see if people are actually using it, but I'm hearing really good responses from people, just because some of the more obscure things that you can do with GitHub Copilot, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, not just the code generation or the stuff. Okay, so the agenda tonight is we're going to talk about, the basic chat, the stuff that you've probably seen all over the place. So basically that's Chat GPT within your IDE. So I'm using VSCode, Visual Studio Code, but you can use any of the standard IDEs. So this will work, and there's plugins for Android Studio, Xcode, Eclipse, all of the JetBrains IDEs. It's like I said, it's even with Eclipse. So like I'm guessing that most of the IDEs are there, unless it's an open source IDE that you're using. I don't know about Electron or anything else. So we're going to talk about the basic chat. We're going to talk about, as an owner of a company, I want to make sure that people are doing the right things. It always annoys me when we don't have any unit test code coverage or documentation. So one of the things that Copilot's really good at is getting you started at writing unit tests. The argument of I don't have enough time to do it just has gone out the window as far as I'm concerned. Same with documentation. So, one of the real things that developers were pretty poor at doing over the last, 20 years of my experience, I think Copilot's going to help a lot with that. I'm going to build an app from scratch. We're going to talk about settings because something happened. So I did a GitHub Copilot session when I was teaching at University of Kettering, probably about 6 months ago, maybe even less. But when I went back to see some of the settings that I expected to be there, they were gone. So basically, I just wanted to show you where they've been moved to. So you have to go into github.com to see some of the settings. So I just wanted to, if you like me had gone, hey, where's that gone? I'll show you what's there, and I'll show you what else is there, because there's some really cool things that have appeared over the last few months that you may or may not be aware of. So the first one would be code reviews. So there are two parts of the chat that when you use the standard version of Copilot. One is just the chat, which is the one that you used to, where, hey, I want you to help me with this app. But there's also Copilot edits, which will do things like refactoring and other stuff. But that leads me to think, well, the next step obviously is to do a code review. So why can't I do code reviews? So you can do, if you do a pull request on GitHub, you can get GitHub Copilot to do a code review for you. So I'll show you how that works. You can also do it within the Visual Studio Code. But I'm just going to show it on github.com at the moment. There are a couple of other cool things that I want to talk about. With two new features, and for these two features, I'm going to have to do them in VS Insiders. So there's VS Code, and then there's a beta version called VS Insiders, which is it's still free, so it's not a big deal. You can just download it. And the two of them can work side by side. One is a green icon and one's the blue icon that you're probably used to if you're using VS Code. But the two things I wanted to show were extensions and agents. So extensions are just a way for you to interact with the outside world from within GitHub Copilot. So I just have a simple hello world, one that we're going to do to get GitHub Copilot to talk like a pirate. But just to show you, the process that you have to go through to create one of those. So if you want to link to an external API, if you want to link to a database, if you want to create a RAG system within GitHub Copilot, you can do that now because the extensions gives you the ability to talk to the outside world. And then the last thing that I want to do is this new thing called agents, which is, it's kind of hard to explain. It's not really like agents that we're talking about with OpenAI agents, not like Crew AI, but basically it is something that works autonomously in the background. So in a way it is an agent, but essentially all that I do is I just say, build a website, I give it some direction. And instead of me having to manually put the files in there, it just does it for me. So, and I did see a really cool demo where somebody added the voice plugin that you can get with extension that you can get with VS Code, and basically it acts like you're pairing with somebody, and when you're trying to get them to develop something, which I thought was cool. Okay, so like I said, if you're a student professor, you can get a full version of Copilot for free. You just go to GitHub Education. If you have Copilot and then you're not actually seeing it when you log into VS Code, you just got to make sure that you go to your Copilot and enable it. So you go to github.com, sign in for whatever your username is, the one that has access, and then you basically just have to go through and say, get access to GitHub Copilot, make sure that you take it, and then you'll see this options screen. So the Copilot options has grown an awful lot since I first look at these. So there's a few things here where Copilot in the IDE, well, that's the obvious one, but then you could have it in a mobile app or in the command line interface, so within the terminal. And then there's lots more, and we'll look at those in a bit. So yeah, actually, let's just have a look at the options because I think it's worth doing that. Where are my options? I'll go straight to it. Okay, so if these aren't enabled, so one of the things that happened was, I know that within Copilot I've used in the past that I can go and say I want to choose a different language model. So why would you want to do that? Well, it was a lot of people were saying that Claude was just really much better at writing code. I think it's a bit more fine-grained than that. Claude is really good at writing certain types of code. So if you're writing LangChain code, I would definitely use Claude. So I want to make sure that if I'm doing any of that I want to use whatever the latest version of Claude is. But if you don't have this enabled, it's not going to show up. Similarly, for the latest versions of OpenAI, the reasoning models, Gemini 2, if you want that in there too as well. Do you want Copilot to search the web? What else do we want to do? Copilot and github.com. I think that's important because that allows you to use Copilot for pull requests. So that's pretty cool because that means that if you're a junior engineer, one of the things that our junior engineers back in the day would always be worried about is, well, what happens when we do a code review? Does that mean I'm going to get ripped apart? So we always used to say things like, well, put your code in SonarQube first, lint it, make sure it's got the obvious things taken care of. And then Copilot is kind of the next stage above that. So you could get it to give you some ideas about what you should be doing with your code. We want to turn on Copilot extensions because we want to be able to talk to the outside world. And I'll talk about that later. I don't think there's anything else in here. Suggestions matching public code. Well, you can turn on, off and on if it doesn't go to give you suggestions for public code that's out there. But I'm going to want to make sure that I have all the code available to me to make sure that I can write the best code that I possibly can. So for me, I want to leave that allowed. You might have a different idea. Okay, so where do we go? Okay, so we go to the marketplace, which is this thing here. And then we want to find GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot chat extensions. So you want to make sure that you install those. There's a third one that I would install these days, which is GitHub Copilot pull requests. It's probably going to be added to my next list of things. And then essentially what you have to do is you see this little user icon here. You want to make sure that you're logged into whichever. Don't make the mistake that I did, that I kept on logging into my university account instead of logging into my business account. So just make sure that you're logged into the right account there and make sure that you're getting all the things that you should be getting. Once you sign in with GitHub, so basically goes to github.com. Do I have authorization to do that? Yes, you do. And then you should see that you're logged in the corner. You will know that because there's usually an icon here which shows if it's not got a slash through it, then that's confirmation that you've logged in. And then you should see up the top here where the drop down is for Copilot, which we look at in a second. Okay, so let's go have a look. Oh, I just do slides all the time. Let's go have a look at VS Code. There's my two icons here. So this one is the VS Insiders, the green one, and this is just the one I'm going to use. So let me change folders here. Let's go my demo one. Okay, so what do I want it to do? I wanted to just do a really simple function. So I would say, okay, write me a Python file to multiply two numbers. So that's just going to add this to a new file, multiply.com. Great, here we go. If we go to the terminal, should be able to run that. Okay, there you go. So what else can we do? So we have this edits, which is, well, what is it? We can always ask Copilot. And let's figure out what it says. So basically what it's going to tell us is Copilot is the chat is going to be conversational, which is what we're doing here. And then the Copilot edits is basically going to go in here and change the code if you wanted to do something. I tend to find myself mostly in the chat, so I'll just stay here for the moment. What else do we have? You can see here that there's different things. So you can look to see which of the different models that you want to use. If you want to use some of the newer thinking models, the O1 Omni one, if you want to use Claude for whatever reasons, that's in there too as well. You can also use the, well, actually, that's another thing I wanted to do. There's a bunch of different things that you can do. So you could say, okay, search, start debugging, explain, fix, new, setup, tests, explain. So it's basically going to explain what the code is, fix what the problem is if you've got an error, explain how the code is working. So if you're using a ton of different code or you've got a huge legacy project that you're trying to work with, that's really good too as well. If you want to open up a new Jupyter notebook, that's there for you too as well. Okay, a lot of the time what you will do is you will start off with /new to create something. We would do workspace if we want to use the workspace, and then fix something that's broken. That's typically the way that we start. We can also do inline. So if we say something like, let's start a new file. Let's call this multiply2.py. And then if we do control I, would say create a okay, so this time I can say, all right, I want to use Claude, get it to write the code. See what it does differently. This is cool, and you can see how the two things are operating together. Let's see what the two code is. We're going to keep this. What change? Basically, it's the same thing, but you're getting a bit more documentation. So it's a good way of seeing how the two things work together. Okay. So like I said, then you have questions about the workspace, explain how the code works, tests. So we're going to do that in a second. Generate some unit tests, and then we're going to do some documentation. We've done the inline chat. We've also said that, yeah, you can use it. So this is Android Studio. So Android Studio would probably be my IDE that I'm most used to. A lot of what we do is mobile apps. I'm not a huge fan of the Gemini version that's in this, but I guess that may just be because I'm so used to Copilot at this stage. So there is a plugin that you can get for Android Studio. You just install the plugin, you start working with the same way as we did before. Okay, so let's have a look to see how we're going to set up some tests. So like I said, one of the things developers really aren't very good at, and I've seen this in my years and years of work, is that they just really don't like writing unit tests. It's something that you have to kind of get them going with. We used to do an awful lot of test-driven development, and I thought it's probably one of the best ways of coding. It means that the developer is much more likely to do what the feature is rather than going off exploring other stuff. So it kind of test-driven development for me is kind of like the holy grail of how I like to code. That's kind of gone out of favor a lot lately, and a lot of developers just won't be writing unit tests. So with this, basically, I've just said, okay, can you create some unit tests for me? So I wanted to do it with this. So where is it? What's it's thinking now? So basically what I've said is at workspace tests, create test file for our thing. And it's decided it's not going to do that. Okay, let's get rid of this. Sometimes you have to kick it. Okay, again. Okay. Let's just copy it across. Doesn't want to seem to behave with me, so let's do this. Okay, now I got my test. I'm going to keep that. Let's get rid of the other code. Let's get some more space here. And then, if all goes well, we should be able to test this. And it's not giving me any tests. Okay, I'll have to go back and fix that. But the other thing maybe that we could do is we could look at documentation. So let's see if we could get this to, there isn't any documentation in the first one I did. So let me see if we could say, okay, if I apply this, is it going to write everything? Yeah, it's going to keep it. So, okay, it's fixed everything. So, okay, so that's the documentation, and my test does not seem to be working. Oh, that's because there's no code in it. That's why. Copy it. Is it because I didn't save it? Yay, okay, finally. It's user error, not Copilot error. So there we got our test, ran the tests for in a millisecond, and all the tests ran okay. Okay, so I think if you've used this in the past, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of what I basically showed here so far. So I don't think you're going to find anything very new here. So let's go into, let's try demo 2. Let's do something a bit better here. Okay, cancel. So what's the next thing I want to do? And I'm going to do this twice. I'm going to do this first, just the standard way that I would do with a within GitHub Copilot. I want to use scaffold. So we're going to do /new scaffold a Flask app with a template HTML file. So we're going to be a bit more adventurous than this, and we're going to try and generate a complete HTML website. Hopefully I can get past that. So if I do scaffold a new website, basically I'm going to get this, and I will do that in a second. Sometimes we have to tell it to simplify itself because it adds a lot of complexity, and a lot of what I do when I'm using GitHub Copilot is I kind of force it to not write the most well-engineered code ever, but just to keep it really simple. That way, if anything breaks, it's easier to fix. And after all, it's throwaway code. I've done a bunch of to-do lists when I've been doing this in the past, but I thought I'd do something different this time. So in my spare time, I read a lot of fiction books. And one of the things around COVID, I basically thought, hey, I'm not getting any younger. I really haven't read many of the classic books. So what I wanted to do is I thought I'd see if I could read as many of the PBS 100 books the Great American Read as I could. So I'm going to try and see if I can add the functionality to my little app to get this going. So let's see if we can just get this started. All right, so what I'm going to do is start my chat. And what was it that I said first? Let me just find, I have a script for all the stuff that I'm going to type in for this. Bear with me a second. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is just the way that, I don't know, 50% of the time it gives me too much code, but we'll see what it does. So I'm asking it to scaffold code for a Flask app. So it's giving me tons of code here. So I don't want all this code. So then basically what I say is, you know what? I don't really want this. I want you to do this instead. I want to make it just a simple app.py and a HTML template file. So this is great. So now I got my workspace. Select a parent folder. I'm just going to go for the one I'm in. Okay, so within my Flask app, so I got to go and open that folder now. So what do I have? I have a template file. I have this. I've got app.py. I want to see the website here. So I think if I do Control-Shift-P, simple browser show, does that come up? Maybe not. Okay, so I'm not getting to see it. All right, so let me just run it. And then what I can do is I can show you what it looks like by just clicking on like, okay, so Python, app.py. Maybe it'll open the browser now. Doesn't matter. We can return to it later. Okay. So this is basically what my app looks like at the moment. So okay, so welcome to my Flask app. Nothing very special. It's going to, learn more. I'm not really that interested in it. So what I want to do now is I have a list of all the books. Basically what I did was there's a PDF which has all these books. I took the PDF and I put it into ChatGPT and I said, okay, here's a list of the 100 best books. Can you pull out the book and the author? Gave it some examples, which you always have to do with ChatGPT, otherwise it doesn't behave as what you want, and then asked it to give me a CSV file of all those. So a point that I'm trying to make here, kind of a best practice, is to use the right tool for the right job. Sure, I could have asked Copilot to do that, but I'm not sure if it would do as good a job as ChatGPT does. So don't be afraid to jump in and out of different tools when you're doing this, because sometimes you might not have the right tool for the job. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to get to. So basically what I'm trying to get to is I want to be able to have a web page which is connected to a CSV file, which is going to save what the data is. I wanted to read in the top 100 books, and I wanted to display the book title, the author, and the HTML. And then I want to have a little checkbox here to say that I've read the book. I want it to be able to, save the information so that if I open up the website again or if I run it, then I'm going to get the same thing. So essentially what I'm doing is building my own Goodreads so that I don't read the same book twice. Life's too short. I don't want to be reading the same book twice. Okay, so let me go back to my GitHub chats now. So I'm going to open my chat and okay, so let's go back to my script, make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Okay, so I'm going to say change the Flask app. Just write it down here. Change the Flask app so it reads in the list of 100 books from my CSV file and displays the book title and author in a HTML table. And pull in no, that's my note to myself. I don't need that. That's just going to confuse it. So there we go. Okay, so I have to update my app.py. Looks good. It's doing render template. Oh yeah, so that should be okay because it's getting rid of it. And then for my index.html, which is my template file, I want to input the stuff for that too as well. So this is just going to have the book and author, and I'm going to say keep that. Not sure if my web page kept up with that. Let's see if I can refresh it and see if we get it. Okay, that's cool. All right, so that's good. And then what I want to do is I want to get it to generate a requirements.txt file for me. What are we using here? We're using Flask. I know that Flask is installed in, yeah, we're using Flask. So let's just get it to, oops. Okay, did I ask it to install Flask? So my requirements file means that when I put it up on GitHub, somebody else wants to use it, or if I download it on the machine, then I'm going to be able to have something that works. Okay. Very good. Okay, so that's the next thing. Also, I don't really like what that web page looks like. I think a web page looks like it's from the 1980s. So I'd really like to get back something, a bit more modern. So I'm going to ask it to give me some basic CSS styling. Just give me some CSS styling. I know absolutely nothing about CSS. No, I do not want that. Okay, so yeah, okay, not what it did before, so it's now creating a styles file, so I'm going to keep that, and then it's going to have a link in my index.html. So hopefully that works. Okay, what's next to do? So I want it to be able to add a checkbox to the left of each book row and put the header as red, because I want to be able to have a checkbox. So I'm going to have to say keep. Okay, so I want to be able to have this. Okay, add a checkbox to the left of each book row and put the header as red. So it's going to need to change that. I'm going to say yes. Thank you very much. Sometimes it slows down. Okay, let's have a look to see what our file looks like now. Okay, so it's great. Getting close to where I want. I want to be able to say that I've read these books. I have gone through quite a few of them, but I know that I haven't read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. So I want to add a form and submit button so I can save it when it's checked. Okay, let's do that. And see what it does. So it's added a form. And then it's changed the app.py. So we should have a new one that is /savebooks. That's fine. So it's got a new route. So let's change my index.html. A little bit concerned about the form action. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to work. Okay, almost there. Getting there. Okay, so keep, and then I want to go into my app.py and make sure that I make the changes there too as well, because it's got a new route. It doesn't have any, the only route it has here is just a display. So what we want to do is add our app.py. Okay. All right, so go back to my web page, refresh it. Should have a submit button at the bottom now. Let's save. It says book saved successfully. Okay. So I want to say the save route, which is not the save books route, is not printing out the books. Which is I want to make sure that it's working. It's actually recognizing that I'm checking the checkboxes. It's going to be able to put them into the CSV file. So first off, I just wanted to make sure that My app.py is going to work okay. So it's changed the request.form. No changes in my index.html. Yes, there are. Okay. Yep, no changes. All right, let's go back to my file again. I want to refresh it just in case. Okay, 1984, scroll all the way down. Didn't output it. Okay. Let me see if I can get it to update the CSV file. Now, update the CSV file, add a new column called red, and update it to yes if the book is selected in the save route. So this would be this one. So in the save books route, is that right? Because it's not saved this time, it's actually save books. I'm sure you've all heard the term vibe coding. So vibe coding is, I don't know who invented the term, came out fairly recently. So basically what it's doing is it is going through this process and just creating code and having a fun old time trying to put it all together. I would say the thought is that you basically don't need any programmers anymore, because you can just do all this stuff yourself. I personally, I don't think that's quite possible yet, because you will find stuff that just simply breaks. And if you don't understand how it works, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to debug what's going on. Because, for example, if this doesn't work, how are we going to fix it? So I won't be fixing it right now, but going through like exactly the same list of things that I do to try and get it to work may not work the second time. So, okay, let's see if we can get it to work, and hopefully everything will be cool. Okay, so I refresh. I am going to say 1984, Confederated Dunces. Great book. Let's do the save and see if everything works. No, like I said, it's failing. Okay, list object is not callable. So let's give it the error. See if this works. Okay. Not convinced this is going to work either, but it's not a bad example, even if it doesn't work. Okay. Let's go back to our web page. Fingers crossed. Book saved successfully. Yay. And then we have the first two were the only two that I did, and then everything else is done as no. So the last thing I would say would be update the HTML file so the checkbox is checked if the read column is Y, and I'll just add that, but I'll let it take care of itself, and then we can move on to something else. Okay, it's now 22, so they've still got quite a lot to go through that I want to finish, but you get the general idea. That's essentially if you're trying to create something simple. I think it's really cool, all the great ideas that you thought, well, we wish I could do this. Even with some very basic knowledge, you can start creating little apps for yourselves to make yourself more efficient. And GitHub Copilot is absolutely amazing for simple things like that. But there, as you can see, can be pretty nerve-wracking to get through, but we get there. Okay, did talk a little bit about the options page. Things are moving really fast in Copilot. Keep an eye on what's going on with the blog. I did notice that most of the stuff has gone to the options page now. So just if you are missing things, or if you've heard about things and you think, why aren't I seeing them? Go to your options. So what you do is basically click on your icon, go to Copilot, and then you should be able to see what they are. Make sure that you're using the right context. So if your personal account or your business account, in this case, it's the business account. Gone too fast. Okay. Right, so the next thing I want to do is move on to some of the newer Copilot features. And for this, we need the Visual Source Insiders. So Visual Studio Code Insiders, excuse me. And so why would you need an extension? So Copilot's kind of a closed system. So a lot of what we're trying to do is break out of that closed system. So there are times when you're going to want to talk to an API, a database. Perhaps you want to use all the code that the company's written before. Maybe you've got a style that you want to follow. Maybe you want to have RAG, retrieval augmented generation. This is kind of gives you a way to do that from within Copilot, because you have two choices at the moment within Copilot. You can use all the publicly available code, or you can just use whatever code was in your company. And sometimes that doesn't work. So the extension gives you a way of kind of breaking out into the outside world. So the hello world example I'm going to do is to talk like a pirate. I have the links in the resources, but we're going to go through it in a little bit of detail. But let me show you what the code looks like first. Get rid of this now. So this is a Copilot extension. So this comes from GitHub. The code itself, so it gives you reasonably good instructions about how to install everything. But I did put all of the links in the resources right at the end. I will say it took me a little bit longer to figure this out than I thought it was going to do. So I really wanted to go through this in a little bit more detail so that you guys can get up to speed really quick. So what is this doing? So it is essentially got a message that it's sending out to OpenAI. I'll make this bigger. That's too hard to see. So it is saying, if you're used to calling, or if you've been to any of the previous meetings that we had, when we call the OpenAI API, we can set up a role of system or user or assistant. And then in this case, what it's doing is it's just giving OpenAI some information, saying you are a helpful assistant that replies to user messages as if you were the Blackbeard pirate. And then you start every response with the user's name, which is user data login. Okay, so let me walk through the slides for this, and then I'll show you how to set it up. First thing I said is that you need to install the Visual Studio Code Insiders. No reason why you can't have Visual Studio Code, the standard one and the beta, the insiders. One is green, one is blue, so less likely to get confused. The link for that is in the resources. Okay, so there are already a lot of Copilot extensions available. So they're out there. So Stack Overflow, which is great. So then if you have a problem, you can ask Stack Overflow the question. Most of them are free. Some of the people are charging from them now. But they're like Perplexity's in there, because Perplexity is not one of the models that you can call from within the options. So that's cool. You can, if you have an account with something else and you want to use that, then you can do that as well. So they're probably worth checking out. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is to go to GitHub Apps under Developer Settings and create your own GitHub app. Let me show you what that looks like. So we have, so we go from here, we go to Settings, we go to Developer Settings, and then we have our GitHub Apps. So you can create your own GitHub app, your new one. I just basically tried to follow what we needed to do to get this to work. You need to give it a name. I just called it the same as what the extension was called. So, well, actually I didn't. I called it, instead of Blackbeard extension, I called it Pirate Copilot extension. I'm pointing it at the settings page for this. So that is the page that we just came off, which is just all the information about this. The other thing that you have to do is you have to turn the webhook off, so it's not expecting to call something after it's been triggered. And then you have to go through permissions. The main permission that you have to give it is you have to be able to have the Copilot chat as turned on, which in this case is just read only. I was playing around trying to get this to work and I was changing permissions, but this is the only one that you actually need. Within Copilot, you're going to choose that it's of type agent. And then you are going to give it this URL, which is the URL which Copilot will send the messages to. So, and I'll show you, that's basically what we have to set up within our VS Insider. And then we have the interface description is speak like a pirate. Okay, so somebody's trying to get in. Okay. Sorry about this. My usual helper is gone today. Okay. So what do we get to? So we, in the developer settings for the GitHub account, you need to give your GitHub app a name. You need to give it a homepage URL, which is where you have all your settings information. So it's kind of the link where people can find your extension, and you want to make sure that the webhooks are deselected. You want to, under the missions, change the Copilot chat to read only and save. Then we go back into Visual Studio Code, VSCode, and what we do is we do a git clone on the Blackbeard extension. So that's the Hello World one that I'm downloading. We want to do an npm install, and then we want to do, and so it's just going to install all the different packages, and then we do an npm start, and the server is now running on port 3000. So when you talk to it, it's going to talk to the port 3000 to call our index.js, to call OpenAI to be able to talk like a pirate. Okay, there is another part that we need to do with this, which is a little bit confusing. So within VS Code, normally we're in the terminals, but in this case, what we want to do is we want to add a port. So we want to add a port for the port 3000. We want to change the visibility to public, and then we get this forwarding address. So we want to copy this local address, and we want to put this into the agent definition in our github.website. And then we want to give it some description, and we want to save it. And then hopefully, if everything works, I don't know if this is still working. I had this up and running earlier on. So the way you call it is you call it, as you can see here in the corner, you want to call it by the extension name, which is @Pirate Copilot Extension. Just going to say hello. And hopefully it'll go out. So now it's speaking like a pirate. So one of the things that I think was pretty weird was Copilot blocked one of the responses because apparently OpenAI said something too piratey, which I thought was kind of funny. But as you can see, this is kind of interesting because now what we're doing is we're now from within our Copilot chat, we can do anything we want now. So basically, we can call an API, database, RAG. It's up to whatever your imagination is when it comes to this stuff. Okay, let me stop that. I don't want to be using that anymore. I'm going to start a new version of VS Code, and I want to do the last thing this evening, which is the agents. And agents is definitely something that is worth looking at because it's stuff that's going to happen in the future. I think this is basically the way that a lot of programming is going to develop over time, and we're basically going to be using agents like this to write a lot of our code. Okay, so I'm in demo 3. Okay. Yes, I trust the others. Okay, so a few things have changed here. It's a little bit hard to see, but in the corner now, we have these things called ask, edit, and agent. So ask is the equivalent of chat that we showed in the standard VS that we have, VS Code. Edit is the Copilot edit that we had before. And then we have this third thing called agent. So we're going to look at agent here now. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the demo that we did before, but just doing it through agents. So a scaffold code for a Flask app. Let's try there. Okay. All right, so it's great. So it's gone and created my app.py. It's going to create a virtual environment for it. So that's great. So now I've got my virtual environment up and running. I'm not doing any terminal commands. It's doing it for me. Give it a chance to get back. I need to copy my books in here. So excuse me for a second while I go get my list of books. Hopefully it's done with its virtual environment by the time it's doing that. It's going to tell me, do I want to actually run it? So, yep. Well, no, it doesn't like that. You still have to get it to do stuff. Okay. And then pip install Flask. Okay, so now I have my books in here. So hopefully this is one that hasn't been, yeah, so it's the original. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to say is, wait for it to get to finish. Change the Flask app so it reads in the list of 100 books from this book CBS and displays the book title in HTML mode. What? I don't know. It seems to have puked on me. Okay, let me start again. Okay. I do know the last time I didn't do the I didn't log into the virtual environment, so maybe it had an issue with that. So let's start with this. Okay, let's say create workspace. I have to go into my Flask app again. Oh, that's what the problem is. I wasn't on agents. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, let's go just one more and see what it looks like then. Okay. Let's see if I can run it so we see what it looks like. We get the same thing again. So basically, without my messing around, the agents allows you to do what I did in the first example quicker using the agents. So what we were doing before with Ask, a lot of what you were doing was messing around with getting stuff moving backwards and forwards. With the agents, yeah, it's still in beta, so it wasn't doing everything automatically. I still had to kind of manipulate it to get it to do what I wanted. But I could see that as if you got used to this, that you could be going really fast. Also, I did see a really good demo where somebody linked up to the voice extension in the marketplace. So now what you're doing is you're actually telling it using your voice to write code. So for example, the demo I saw was somebody was using it to write a Rust API. I've never written Rust, but they hadn't either. So they basically just talked their way into getting an API that was written in Rust, which is super cool. So I think really that's definitely a direction that we're kind of going. And then expect to see that in VSCode in the not too distant future. Okay, the other thing I did want to show is that I kind of skipped over. I got ChatGPT Copilot to do me a to-do list on top of what the Flask app was. So, the welcome to Flask. And then I put it into GitHub, into github.com. And I put it in a separate branch and did a pull request, a PR. And then you can see here that it will allow you to have Copilot as a reviewer. So this is cool. And it looked at the code that it wrote itself. I didn't write the code. And it gave me something that it suggested that I do to make the code better. So I think that's cool too as well. So if you're a one-person show and you're trying to get this stuff going with wanting still to have somebody to look at your code, I think Copilot's a great way to act as your reviewer. Or if you're an engineer who might work in an environment where code reviews can be a bit caustic, then I think this is great too as well, because it can fix the simple stuff and make sure that you're less likely to get hopped on. Not that would happen to anybody here. That is the agents. As I said, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically what the idea, the concept behind it is it's always going to be much faster to do this stuff within agents than it is if we're doing it just with the ask or the edit. So to finish off, kind of up at the hour, the resources are go have a look at the new agents. That's the thing that we're going to do next month. The link for the Blackbeard extension, if you want to do the Hello World for the extensions, see if you can play around with that and get that working. And then here is the insiders, and I do have the to-do list as well. And I want to show you what that code looks like. So I think I had it up here. Yeah, here's my code. So essentially what I'm doing is I have this to-do list, there's two branches. I want to merge the to-do list into main. And it is saying, here is my reviewer Copilot, and Copilot has recommended that I do this. So I can accept it, it'll update the code. And then I could basically just merge the pull request so the to-list branch goes away, and then main is my main branch. And with that, I am going to see if you guys have any questions. And if not, I'm going to call it a day. So, okay, will this be recorded and shared? Yes, it will be. I think deep research is more useful than 4.5. Eric, I would 100% agree with you. The deep research is super cool. And 4.5, I think, was a disappointment to a lot of people. But didn't seem to be that much of a difference between some of the thinking models and 4.5. But deep research, I've been using that. I was going to do a talk on deep research, but deep research is more of a GUI tool. You can't really call it so far from the API. Most of the work that I'm doing is API based. So maybe in the future we can. And then Eric, I have cursors is super similar to that. Yeah, basically what I think is happening with the agents is they've just stolen all the ideas from Cursor and put them into Copilot. So I use ChatGPT to map out strategy, then Cursor to execute, wondering if Copilot is kind of like that. Yes, I would agree it's very similar. Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll say thank you very much, guys, and see you next month. Where can we find the uploaded video once uploaded? It will be at the, I will put the link in the meetup.com. I always put the a link to the slides and a link to the video, so you should see it tomorrow at some stage. Thanks, guys. Bye now.
Hey, Godfrey.
See ya.